Want to know the secret property path that Singaporeans are using to grow their wealth? Today we're going to go through 3 proven strategies for 2025. Whether you are a HDB upgrader, a property investor, or someone that's looking to find a passive income from a real estate property, we're going to explore the pros and cons between the 3 different strategies and even understand whether this is going to be something just for you. By the end of this video, we're going to see which path suits you the best, or whether this is going to be a strategy that you use over time in Singapore. So you're ready to level up your property game? Let's go. The second pathway that you're going to take a look is to sell your property and basically split it and buy 2 different assets instead. So although this is a very popular term that has been coined in the past couple of years, I think this is a strategy that do require a lot of thinking, calculations, as well as understanding how it works so that you don't fall into the trap of just following the trend with other people. So what this essentially means is, for example, if a couple has reached their 5-year MOP, or they're really completed their MOP and they are looking to upgrade, what they do is to sell their property and then they each buy an individual property under one name instead. Typically how the arrangement is done is the couple will buy an individual property each in one name. They'll choose one to stay in, and then the other one will be used as an investment. So why is it done this way? Basically is using the opportunity that one name buy one property so that they can leverage on the appreciation growth for this particular property. You're having 2 properties look into to have the wealth accumulation. So it sounds great, but does it really work? Is it really good? So you need to understand a couple of things here. So first up is this. First case study is that we have a couple who have sold their property. They're invested into 2 different properties. One for their own stay, a 2-bedder, and then another in terms of a 3-bedder for renting out because they think that that property is slightly larger and the rentability is better. Under one name to buy a smaller property in terms of 2-bedder. The other one is a property that is a 3-bedder and they use that for their own stay instead. In the 2-bedder property, it was in a good location in D15. The rentability was good and they were able to have good rental income to come through from this particular unit. But the question was, after some time, because their family grew and they were staying in a 3-bedder unit, which was not that big, under 1,000 square foot, they were finding it a little bit of a squeeze to go through. And when they reassessed their assets, they were trying to think about what they can do to progress on in the next asset into something that's bigger for them to live in. For them, they wanted to exit from the 2-bedder, or it was slightly smaller in terms of their unit. It took a bit longer for them to sell because they bought in a 2-bedder, but it was in a small development and also it was in a freehold location, even though it was in D15. It took slightly longer. No, over time they realized that maybe it could have been better that they just pool their resources together to purchase something that is larger and able to live in, so that they don't have the inconvenience of trying to move between the 2 and trying to sell off, because eventually it took longer than they expected it to be. The other one was also because it was a boutique unit, and for boutique unit, even though it's in D15, it's quite boutique units are a characteristic by itself. There will only be a certain type of buyer that are willing to buy into this unit, and from an investment stance, it's a bit of a risk. It's not as easy to sell off as you think. The advice that we're able to learn from this particular case study is that think about your exit plan, think about your lifestyle that you want, and if the resources are able to accommodate to it, it's better to choose in a place whereby your property is able to make the rental income for you as an investment asset, but it has to be something that you're able to offload easily as well. Of course, something that is cheaper or something that is a bit smaller in terms of size may be more palatable in terms of the investment asset. But if that is the case and it causes you to not be able to sell or exit that property easily, you probably need to reconsider and think about that as well. Next is another case study whereby you have a couple that is a little older in their age. What happens is that they sold their property and basically bought 2 different properties. One is a 1+ study and the other one is the 3-bedder. Because they are slightly older, they rented out their 1+ study in a good location with sufficient facilities. For them, they were staying in their 3-bedder, but eventually felt that when their child grew up and then moved out, they didn't need so much space. They moved from their 3-bedder into the smaller 1+ study and were able to rent out their 3-bedder quite easily, because in terms of the location wise that they chose was something that was strong and always had a demand of a tenant pool that will come through. So for this case, it was more or less successful, I would say, and it's one of the pathways that they were able to take rental income, and they were a bit flexible to see how they're able to manage between staying between the two properties of one for own stay, the other for investment, and switch over time. So the key thing to learn from this is that you need to be able to have a deep knowledge of the location and the area that you want to invest into, both for own stay and also for investment, because eventually that's something that you need to understand and make sure that you always have a rental demand coming through. Then it's going to be good for you. You will not end up in a place whereby you get stuck, and that's something that we don't want to have. So for the case of the selling your property and eventually buying two different properties under two different names, area that you need to understand is that for the financial aspect, you do need to have a substantial financial capability to be able to do so, because you're putting a mortgage under an individual name and each unit under an individual name, which means that you have to have the financial capability to, one, maintain the mortgage, two, come up with the 25% down payment for the particular unit, and also pay off the taxes as well. And over time, right, that there shouldn't be any difficulty for you to rent out, to manage the financing, as well as manage the tenant as well, because intangible aspect that still needs to be done. So for rental realities, it's going to be a touch and go. It really depends on what kind of experiences that you would have. For different rental realities, you do have to upkeep the unit. You need to be able to maintain the place so that you don't have long stretches of vacancy. It's important to see that you are well astute and very clear in terms of the information. I would suggest that you rely on a real estate expert to guide you through, so that you make the right choices, make the wise choices, and not be hasty, not be emotional about certain things. Make the best decision based on the information that is being provided to you. Next pointer would be lifestyle, whether you want to trade off certain things if you're going towards the owning two different properties under two different names. You need to understand that in the future, is it something that you are able to stay a little bit longer, or in terms of school, in terms of your family, is that something that you want to have? Because things change, right, over time. If you have too short of a timeline and you don't understand that actually your family might go through some changes over the years, then you might be stuck, or you might need to make changes over time. So you got to be flexible, have to think ahead, have some foresight. Maybe you need to rank your level of importance on certain things that you need to do, because when you do eventually go into a property, you must understand timing right now has changed. It used to be 4 years you're able to make a change, but because of the SSD changes, it's at 5-year mark right now. So choose wisely. Okay, our third path is the investor that's looking at buying new launches and selling off after a couple of years. So this new launcher investor strategy is basically this: to find out and understand which are the best new launches, and they go for it and eventually sell it off over a couple of years when the TOP is reaching, or the CSE is reaching in 5 years time. See, the reason is because developers typically launch new projects at better prices as compared to later on in the age of the project. The reason is because developers are incentivized to make sure that the project sells well early on, so that there will be, one, in terms of attraction that is coming through, two, in terms of getting the early on buy-in from the clients, so that they are able to build on the bank disbursements for the development to start to build. So that's a very, very important aspect, because unless the developer is really looking at the wrong data altogether and pricing it in the wrong manner, looking from the developer's perspective, they are always incentivized to do so. So if you understand this, when you make the comparisons on the launch prices versus the region price, surrounding price, and make the study of that, you can have a good gauge of whether a project is good or no good. But of course, that's only in terms of one of the aspect, pricing. The other aspects will be a whole slew of other areas that you need to look into, whether there's development, whether there's growth, whether there is price comparison versus the surrounding region, surrounding areas. How is it like, whether there's demand for the pricing that you're going into. So for example, picture a project that has been bought in at 2020 at, for example, a price at 1,500 PSF, and it has grown over the number of years and finally hit its TOP in about 2024. During that period of time, it's more or less the pricing movement for new projects that are priced well will grow over time and reach a new high for TOP, and eventually the delta is something that the investors are banking on. You need to understand that pricing, yes, although it's always going to keep increasing and pricing might seem high in the year that you buy, but if you see the trending over time and you spot the right project with the right fundamentals in place, you're able to make sure that you come through at a very safe price. Now, one example would be Treasures at Tampines. Early on in that project, it was actually a very, very large project, more than 2,000 units that were available. Back then, because it wasn't near the MRT and there were so many units available, the initial uptake was a little bit slow because it was launched with other developments. They were quite major in size at the same time. But those that bought into the project actually bought in at a very low price in 2019, about 1,280 PSF, and that was really quite low at that point in time. But over time, as supply in the market starts to dwindle and the demand also starts to increase at the same time, over the next couple of years, the uptake starts to increase and the pricing started to grow from there. So can you imagine? Now, one of the major areas that you need to look at, for example, if you are a person who bought into resale property, in a resale property, there are many people that have already bought in maybe at a lower price, but you want to sell the property, for example, at let's say 1,700 PSF, 1,800 PSF. In that development, let's say there are 700 units there. Only a couple of units are selling off at 1,700 or 1,800 PSF because transactions are only so many, right? Let's say, for example, I give you 20 units. No, it's very difficult for someone in that development to try to convince other people to sell off at that high PSF when they had bought in much earlier on in the resale project. All they need to do is to just see that, oh, the price is so high, I can sell it maybe slightly lower than that, because it's not easy for me to get that kind of a buy-in from clients or the potential buyers, right, to pay such a premium for it. If you take this case and then you transpose it onto another area for the new launches, when you buy in at a new launch at the early onset price, given that the developer has priced it in, they slowly increase the prices over time because the initial phase of intake is already coming through. As they stage the price later on, that price is already automatic where the developer has put in later on. No, it can't change, right? They are able to price it in because they still have units available to sell. And for that, right, you get an automatic elevation of your price if you were the person that bought in early on. So rather than expecting pricing to increase and to sell off in a resale development over time, a new project is able to ride that appreciation because there is an automatic elevation of price that's already been built into the system for a new launch. So of course, yes, it's good to buy into a new project, but the key thing really is for you that you need to understand what is a good project. See, one of the hot tips is that not every project is going to be good. If you don't understand the fundamentals, you have no framework to understand how a project works and whether it is good or no good, and you just blindly follow into it, then you're in for a rude shock. There are a lot of different aspects you need to look at, but no, that's where you do require, and it's important for you to have conversations with someone that has ears close to the ground and understand the current market in this place. Because if you don't understand that and you buy into a project that has too much premium that has been put in place for that, then that's where you have examples of projects that have been overpriced, can't sell later on, finding it difficult to make a profit out of it because the initial pricing has been bumped up because maybe there's a premium that's been put in. Now, one of the best examples that's haven't happened, Reflections, because for that project, when they initially bought in, the premium that was been added, fantastic development in terms of design, in terms of architecture, pricing was elevated way above buying in at. And over the number of years, you can see that actually a lot of people don't make money out of that project because they bought in at too high a price in a time where it wasn't actually acceptable. We rather be understanding the situation in the market and buying at a safe price than buying it at an overly premium price and hoping that prices increase after that. There are ways to do it. It's an important factor to understand. That's where you need an advisor to come and help you through. So the other area that you need to understand also is that you have to watch whether the supply in that particular location, is it too much? Maybe demand is not enough, or maybe even cooling measures that come through that affect the demand is going to help you when you eventually want to offload that investment unit. So it's important to keep an eye rely on all those things before you put in your check and go for a unit so that you are protected, right? It's important. When it comes to investment in the property, you need to make sure that you buy in into protection, you buy in into safety, and not buy in into hype. The astute eye will help you see what is hype and what is not. And most people don't have the time to look at it. Rely on someone that's able to know and have the feet on the ground, understand the market for you. So in conclusion, we have come across 3 different strategies. One is the HDB upgrader. 2 is someone that's going to sell off their unit and eventually buy 2 different units in 2 different names. The third one is the new launch investor that keeps looking out for something that is a good buy. Whatever strategy that you take, is important to understand it must work for you. You must understand your finances that are in place, your risk and lifestyle appetite at the same time. Because it's not something that is static, but it's important to have a framework to help you to understand how to move forward in this property journey. In Singapore, one of the most important things that you can ever have is to understand that this is an asset that will help you to elevate and build capital over time. There are many that have done so. They have done so wisely because they have heeded on the important advices of those that understand the market. We don't want you to be put in a place whereby you're hoping just for something to happen, but rather you are buying into something of safety, protection, and you're able to ride and help your asset elevate over time without much stress. If you want to scale your property investments over time, I think it's important to have a discussion, speak to someone that is in tune with the market, and from there you have a clearer picture. Reach out to me if you want to have a one-to-one consultation. I'm most happy to walk through with you what we're able to understand from the market, and with that you have the right framework to move forward. I'm here to help, here to encourage you, and here to also give you clarity that is not so difficult, it is not so fearful, but rather is something that with the right framework we can move towards building a better future for you and your family. So like, subscribe, share, look at the videos that we have gone through. We're going to have a couple more that reviews in terms of the projects. Do follow me. We're going to grow this together. Thank you so much.